Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trylko from the Sons of UCF, joined by Eric Lopez of the Black and Gold Banneret. Welcome to Around the Kingdom. Elo, my favorite park ranger. Hello, what's going on?
Trace, I'm wearing this hat in honor of Gus Malzahn after his first day of practice and first media availability. Are we ready for a grind? That's what this fall practice is going to be like for UCF. Coming up on the fastest UCF show around, we'll discuss UCF. Are you more confident they're going to beat Colorado or Florida? Plus, what's with the Ghost Coach Gus have a chip on his shoulder? We'll discuss all that and much more on this edition Around the Kingdom with my prop.
Before we get going with all of that, let us welcome the third member of our team. He is Adam Eaton from the Sons of UCF. Keeps an eye on the clock, keeps us on our toes. Adam, hello.
Greetings, gents. I may be a little distracted tonight. I'm watching UCF practice 15 seconds at a time here on the internet. So I may be distracted, but I'm glad you have your prop, Elo.
Check back with you in a bit. Adam, Elo, preseason camp underway for the Knights. A Monday press availability with head coach Gus Malzahn entering his fourth season with the Knights. A little fiery, Gus. I asked him, put him on the spot a little bit. Where are you different as a head coach going into your fourth season? And he expressed a little bit of a chip on his shoulder after the Knights' 6-7 season one season ago.
Well, that's not the first time you've asked a question to someone and they got a little chip on their shoulder after that question. So that what a surprise. We're back. It's officially football season, everybody. Look, I think it was interesting. I think he realized, and he mentioned it during the presser, last year wasn't acceptable. I mean, Trace, have you ever heard of a coach go as down about a season that like Gus was last year, his first ever losing season as a coach, UCF going 6-7? He didn't buy into hey, we were transitioned to Big 12. He is still bothered by that. And I think that bothers him. I think he knows there are people that are questioning things. And I think he wants to quiet some of the critics out there that, hey, that was just a one-year thing and that we're here to compete right away in the Big 12.
Because there was opportunities to do better than 6-6, right? The games lost at the wire, especially during camp, preseason, and spring, in which he said they were practicing late game situations. They knew games would go down to the wire, and yet still lost a lot of close games, and notably blowing that game against Baylor at home. So it did leave a bad taste in his mouth. And as we talked about, influx of new players, changes in the coordinators, he has shaken things up. He's also taken back the reins of play calling, so a lot of the offensive production will be on him and his decision-making.
Which, in a way, puts him on the spot, because now if things don't go well offensively, it's all on him. It was this guy's call or that guy call. He's brought in a lot of guys, over 40 players on this roster. This is his roster. This is his team. It's time to put up, I guess, boom or bust of a type of year. And I think, look, Gus coached in the SEC. He's won an SEC championship. He knows what it takes, and I think he wants to win his Big 12 title and quiet some of the critics, the ones that keep bringing up the fact he loses 4 games a year. I don't know who that is, Trace, but maybe it was the guy that was asking him that question, if he's a different coach. I know you two are pals. Interestingly, of course, what came out on Sunday night is UCF named their captains. Interestingly, 3 offensive players, 1 defensive player. Pretty much all of them transfers except R.J. Harvey, who was a transfer but has been at UCF for a long time. Trace, what was your reaction to the captain selections led by, of course, KJ Jefferson?
You mentioned it right there. Transfers, all of them, transfers. Can we stop talking about the 2026 recruiting class? Let me see some of those guys that Gus has recruited rise up to be elected team captain by their teammates. All transfers. That's the big standout for me. That this class represents.
But the players selected them. I mean, KJ Jefferson's a senior, has been there before. I mean, who would you recommend? Who would you pick that's been here a while that should have been a captain?
How about some guys that have done something on this team? Ethan Barr, what have you done for the Knights? KJ Jefferson, what have you done at UCF? So 2 of the
but clearly the players that
haven't even played.
But clearly the players that voted for this were not bothered by that. So they have a completely different perspective than you.
Well, half of them are transfers themselves.
Well, there you go. You just nailed it. You just figured it out. There aren't many players around that have been here for a while. And I think that's unfortunate. I think this is the norm now, Trace. This is the new college football. I mean, I think we had a great comment we're not going to be as attached to these players on the roster as we were back, in the 10 years ago, where these guys were here 3-4 years. So It is interesting, though. It is unique. I do wonder, if this is also from a, coaching staff, do they look at leadership skills when they add a player in the portal? Is this something too where like a year from now, do the coaches use this as, hey, you come here, you could be a leader, you could do a lot of things, but it is unique. But I don't think we're the only ones that are going to have a bunch of transfers as a captain.
No, probably not. Let's see how many wins this crew produces before we start selling transfer players as team captains. Monday, Gus Malzahn. Tuesday, defensive coordinator Ted Roof will meet the media. All the talk last season of the run defense, a new coordinator comes in, and Ted Roof. What are your biggest questions, Elo, about the Knights' defense going into this 2024 season?
Well, it's real simple. Do we have a defense, right? And it starts up front. Can they stop the run, Trace? Because if they cannot stop the run, if they get bullied around, then it doesn't matter how good your offense is, because your offense is going to spend time on the bench. And I think it starts there. It's real simple. Start there, up front. Can they control the run against teams in the Big 12 that can run the ball down your throats? Gus, I think, it was interesting. Gus told our good friend Matt Burchell that in the Orlando Sentinel that they were surprised how much of a run league this Big 12 was.
Why were they surprised?
Well, because the perception about the Big 12 that it's a air raid, throw it out, shoot out games. But in reality, the Big 12 was stacked with running backs, and I think a lot of teams made those adjustments there. That's, to me, the number one thing I'm question on defense.
Well, I'm curious to see how this group of players adjust to Ted Roof. Of course, his resume is like a scroll. He's had multiple stops. How will he impact this team? We've talked about all of these new players. How do they gel as a team? It's a question Adam brought up on Sons of UCF Live just last week. How do they bring in all of these players and make a team? And how do these players adjust to Ted Roof? And does he have the right players that fit his system? Talk on Monday of player availability was that they're going to blitz more. Do you have the right guys to do what he wants to do?
I feel like that's every coach says that in a first, interview of the pre-camp, right? Like, hey, we're going to go vertical or we're going to blitz a lot. Like, no defensive coach is ever going to say, hey, we're going to
blitz less.
Yeah, we're going to play that. But it is a fair question. What does Ted Roof bring to the table here? Do we see differences on the defense scheme-wise that, was somewhat questioned last year? I thought at times it went a little too far. That is a legitimate question. What does Ted Roof bring to the table that is a noticeable difference on this year's defense? And of course, part of that is which defensive players are going to shine under whatever the Ted Roof system. There's a lot of new faces on this defense. Trace, who are the ones that you're interested in?
Well, hell, I'd like to know more about Ethan Barr. He's such a team favorite that he's a team captain now. I'd like to know more what he brings beyond experience. A lot of new guys. And you mentioned it earlier, the attachment. I think you knew what you had with guys when there were guys that were with you for a while, but with the influx of all these new players, how do they gel? How does UCF do getting guys out of the portal? Do they make an immediate impact? They better certainly at linebacker, or it's going to be another long season defensively. But put me down for Ethan Barr as a guy I'm curious about.
I'm going to stick to the theme here. Defensive line. Do they take the next step, right? We like some of the young talent there up front. Do they take that next step? Do we have a Jamarius Pittman, for example, in there that could be a block there against the run? I'm interested to see. I don't know if there's one player that I'm in. I want to see a group of selection. And I think, secondary is always interesting. That's always been a strength of this program from his history. But I think defensive line, Trace, if our defensive line can be a lot better, then I think we're going to have a great year. If they struggle, I think it's more of the same from last year.
Well, a guy that you mentioned there, see a step up a level is John Walker, right?
Walker, that's right at the top of the list.
Season, but how does he take it up another notch? And who fills that void left by the departure of Tremont Morris-Brash? Will there be someone with maybe double-digit sacks? I know we hear that in camp all the time. I'm going to be the guy that has double digits. Do we have a guy on this roster that might get that?
Walker's a great point, right? Because he had the freshman, the great year last year. Now everybody knows him. Teams are going to have film on him, so they're going to make adjustments on him. Did he work on it? Does he make an adjustment as well? The 10 sack thing, I've kind of given up on that in part, Trace. I think in today's college football, it's hard to get a guy to get that many sacks because people are throwing the ball away so quickly. The question, really the stat I look for is, hurries? Do you hurry the quarterback to maybe rush a play? That might be an interesting category to follow this year when it comes to the defense.
I will just say this: no matter how everybody adjusts to Ted Roof, they've got to be better. Right? They just have to be better than they were, especially.
Does Ted Roof wear this hat? Does he wear this too? Trace, will he wear this too? We know.
I certainly hope not. But anyway, Elo, last week we started talking about confidence in the first 3 games: New Hampshire, Sam Houston State, and at TCU. The next 3, 4, 5, and 6: Colorado at home, at Florida, then Cincinnati at home. Let's begin with Colorado. Better, of course, to be facing them in the bounce house, but it's in the early part of the schedule when Dion at least showed in season 1 in Boulder that he has his team more prepared. We'll see how they fare over the grind of the season. What's your confidence factor in a Knights getting a victory over Primetime?
57%. 57% because they're home. They're home.
That's not very confident, though.
Because Colorado, I agree with what you're saying. I think Colorado will be good early in the year. We don't know what they have. They're the mystery team. We know this. They have a first-round talented quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. UCF is the defensive line. Can they pressure him? If not, I think they could get light up by that passing game. We don't know what Colorado has up front in the offensive line. They have all of that is brand new, but I think it's 55%. And even though I expect a sell out there,
it just dropped 2%.
I'll go 50. Well, yeah, because I just realized if the game's at noon, do we see more Deion Sanders fans in the stands, maybe a little less UCF fans that sell their ticket? Maybe I'm dropping that. 55, 57%.
How important is beating Colorado if they have stumbled on the road the week before at TCU?
You don't want to go. Pressure. Yeah, you don't go 0-2 at that point of your season. So you're not going to make it for the big ball.
Gator game. I think we're both going to say good confidence on Cincinnati. Gator game. Night
40
in the
48%. And the reason I say that is because of the night.
Pulling these weirdo numbers. 48.
Hey, man, it's close. I try to give people accurate information. Night game at the Swamp. I've been to the Swamp for a night game. Tough place to play. Doesn't matter how good or bad they are. KJ Jefferson has won a game there. That was in the afternoon. How does UCF will handle that environment will be interesting. I think it's 48%, regardless of how good or bad Florida is.
I said to you a week before that I think most of these games are jump ball games. This is another one that I think is in that category, but I think UCF on the road will be an underdog. Of course, we don't know how Florida will have fared to that point. 45%. Close to you.
We're not that far off. No, we're not that far off.
Not that far off. But I still, that would be one of mine. I think that they lose and hope that I'm wrong.
Yeah, you've been pessimistic on that Florida game. I think they could. A split, though, there is not out of the question. 95%. They beat Cincinnati. The 5% is, do they have a letdown after Colorado and Florida? That's my concern letdown game. Yeah.
No letdown. Transitioning to Adam and our silly game.
All right, gents, don't forget, though, we're brought to you by our good friends at the Orlando Sports Foundation and the Cure Bowl, December 20th, Camping World Stadium. You don't want to miss this event. There's going to be fun going on inside the stadium for football, outside the stadium as well. Don't miss this. It's always Orlando versus cancer, so join the home team. Go to curebowl.com now to secure your tickets for one of the best bowl games of the year. All right, gentlemen, here we go. First question for you. We're talking football. We're talking some position groups. So, Eric, I'll start with you. What you know so far? And today we finally got the roster was released. We know who's actually officially on the roster now. So, Elo, you've had a chance to see this. Which position group do you think is the deepest on this roster?
Running back. I think running back's the deepest position. I mean, I would feel pretty good 3-4 deep. Like, if there was an injury, I'm one of those that if something were to happen to RJ Harvey, I'm not concerned. I think the running back position is the deepest.
Yeah, I have to agree. You've got a lot of talent there, and if he needs to, take a breath, there's somebody else to plug in. So
you got Boone, you got Boone, you got Bowman. I mean, Richardson.
Johnny Richardson's still there.
Yeah, I mean, that's unbelievable.
All right, Trace, I'll start this with you. If you take quarterback out just because of sheer number of people involved, which position group do you think is the thinnest as we start this fall camp?
The thinnest.
Again, take quarterback out because there's only 3 of those, right? So take that out.
I have a great deal of confidence in Herb Hand on the offensive line, but I got to see how it comes together. So right now, I'm concerned about the depth at offensive line the most.
I'm going to go wide receiver. I'm not, can we go 2 deep, 3 deep? How deep are we? I don't know. I'd be on, right? Like there's, after Kobe Hudson, we have questions as of now. Really, if you think about it, last year, we only really went 2 or 3 guys dependent on the receiver. I think wide receiver.
Right, at the risk of stealing what I think maybe Trace's one more thing later on in the show, today it was announced that Sean Beckton has rejoined the UCF coaching staff in an analyst role. Obviously, dodged a bullet there, Trace. Beckton, obviously a legendary player at UCF and a major force in the recruiting game at his time at UCF. So, Elo, here's my question for you. Is Sean Beckton on the UCF wide receiver Mount Rushmore?
Absolutely. He's on the Mount Rushmore as a player. I would argue he's also on the Mount Rushmore as a position coach. I think this is an underrated story. I think this is a great ad for Coach Malzahn. Remember now, analysts are allowed to coach. That was a rule change this offseason. So Sean Beckton, who has done a phenomenal job over the years as a receiver coach, a defensive back coach, I actually think this is a phenomenal move. I think he's the Mount Rushmore as a wide receiver player, no doubt. I think he's a Mount Rushmore of a non-head coach Mount Rushmore there as far as assistant coach is concerned.
Yeah, underrated for all of his accomplishments, coaching, player, right? You guys, Adam and Mike, had him on as a guest not too long ago. He had the game where he scored 4 different ways for the Knights. Well-liked, well-respected, good recruiter. I put him up there. I like that. It seems like a good off-season topic, Elo, Mount Rushmore in every position group.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Luckily, we have some time before we have to do that. All right, last one, gents. As you both know, the Olympics is going on now. So I have a list of 6 sports, and I'll go one at a time. I want each of you to tell me true or false whether or not this has ever been a sport in the Olympics. I'm going to tell you the sport. You tell me if this has ever been an Olympic sport, all right? So I'll go to the first one here. Speed walking. Eric, has that been a sport? True or false?
False.
Trace?
True.
The correct answer is true. Speed walking is indeed an Olympic sport.
Got to watch out for the Swedes in that one.
Next one. The water jug carry. Water jug carry. Elo, true or false? Olympic sport?
False. False.
False.
You are both correct. Never an Olympic sport. Pickleball. Elo, true or false? Pickleball is an Olympic sport.
I think it should be, but I don't think it is. So false.
Not yet.
You're both correct on that one. Both on that one. All right, next one. Trampoline. Trampoline jumping. Olympic sport. True or false, Elo?
True.
True. I believe we talked about that last week on Sons of UCF Live. Yes.
Very good, Trace. All right.
I heard it on not only that, but Al Michaels, the AI version of Al Michaels, told me about it.
Of course you did. All right. The sport that you're the contest that you all both know as horse in basketball. True or false? Horse, an Olympic sport.
False.
False.
You're both correct. Last one.
Tug of
war. Tug of war, Olympic sport. True or false?
False.
Should be, but false. Sorry, Trace. That comes to an end. True. Tug of war was an Olympic sport from the 1900s to 1920. But I do believe you still won that one, Trace. Congratulations.
It was the national pastime back in the day. That's true.
Of course, yeah.
Tug of war was the national pastime.
It was.
All right.
Back in the day.
Speed things up, Elo. Let's go.
All right. How many passing yards and touchdowns and rushing touchdowns will KJ Jefferson get, Trace? That is the stat line of the box trend here. What are we going with on KJ's numbers?
Well, you just talked about the deepest position group at running back. I got to think that somewhat keeps KJ's numbers in check a bit. Put me down for 5 rushing touchdowns, Elo. He'll get some ground there. And 537. Well, I'll go back and jot these down and we'll track them. That's where I'm going. 5 rushing touchdowns, 537 yards running.
I'll go 750 on the ground.
Wow, that's a lot for this deep running back group. He's going to vulture all these yards.
To run those. Look how much he ran Plumlee. I think 750 and 8 touchdowns.
Whew. Passing touchdowns. Put me down for 24, Elo, and 2,432 yards.
25, and I'll go 27. No, I'll go 2,800 yards.
Is that going to be enough for him to be in Heisman contention?
I could think he could, if UCF wins 9-10 games, he could be in the mix for the Big 12 player of the year. I didn't say for the record that he's going to the Heisman. I said if he has a monster year, he could definitely be a Heisman.
Wow. I hate to blow things out of proportion on this show like Red Raider Trace took on a new life.
That's true. Very true.
I hate to call you.
Listen, I will win you over on KJ, though. I'm in on KJ, and, I think he will stay healthy. That's my bold prediction.
All right. You just depleted the running yards and touchdowns possible for RJ Harvey, coming off of 16 touchdowns, Elo, 1,476 yards a season ago. What do you got him at?
Are we stealing this from Sons of UCF podcast? Is Adam and Mike okay with this? I feel like this is a Sons of UCF version. I will go 1,160 yards for Harvey.
So you have him going down in yardage because of the depth at running back.
Yes. I don't think Boone came here to sit on the bench. I think they both play. And I think Jefferson will run more. So, yes, I think his numbers go down.
How many touchdowns was that?
10.
I am going to go with 12 touchdowns and 1,285 yards. I still think he'll be the workhorse for the Knights.
All right, Kobe Hudson, leading receiver. How many receiving yards and touchdown?
Well, you know what? I went and looked up Javon Baker's numbers. He had 52 catches, Elo, compared to Kobe's 44. He had 1,139. Javon did to a 900 for Kobe. And Kobe had more touchdowns at 8 and 7 while in Las Vegas for Big 12 Media Days. I said to Kobe, I go, it seems like to me you're a double-digit touchdown guy and 1,000+ yards. And he says, yes. You just mentioned maybe some thinness at wide receiver, though I don't entirely agree with you on that. But I think he'll catch a lot of passes. I mean, KJ's got to throw him to somebody. How many did you have him at? 25 touchdowns. It put me down for 10 touchdowns, 1,086 yards, Elo.
I've got him at 1,174 yards receiving and 11 touchdowns.
All right, so we're close on that.
Yep, pretty much.
So that's 11 of KJ Jefferson's 25. You got 14 by how many different guys catching? Tight end in the mix there somewhere? Or
tight end will catch a few. I think tight ends will catch a few. You're going to have couple of receivers catch a few. I think you'll have a running back or two catch a few. So that'll spread it out the rest of the way.
Gotcha. All right. I'll jot these down. We'll keep track of them throughout the season. Hey, you know what? Season's a couple weeks away. We're getting ready for weekly prop bets again, which should be fun as well, Elo. All right. Article out this week saying Oklahoma State, is it in the best position to become the Big 12's biggest football brand? Agree? Disagree with the premise?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the safest bet. I don't believe Deion Sanders is staying in Colorado long term. He may not stay beyond this year, actually, if you're being honest. So yes.
How many wins for Deion, and you think he leaves? I mean, because Colorado is not his ultimate destination.
8.
So they were 4-8 a year ago. They go to 8-4 in a bowl game.
Yeah. I could see him being in the mix.
8?
Yeah.
6 or 7. You don't think he gets stolen from Boulder?
I think no. I mean, depends. You know what? I'm not even convinced he'll be in college. I could see him being the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys after Mike McCarthy gets fired after this year. I can see that. He's a former Cowboy, big name. Jerry Jones loves that. I know Adam right now wants to pull his hair out, but I could see that. But I think Oklahoma State. The reason I say Oklahoma State over UCF, they have a head start financially on UCF. UCF for all these years have been a nickel and dime school when it comes to all their sports. Well, now you're in a league with a bunch of schools that don't spend nickel and dimes. They spend dollar bills. And Oklahoma State's at the top of that when it comes to football.
Don't you think this is pretty wide open, though? There's a great deal of parity in this league. Anybody could seize this mantle. But even if it were Oklahoma State, let's say they were to win the Big 12 this season. Are they the dominant brand? They're going to win year after year after year. It's like asking, is Oklahoma or Texas going to become a dominant brand in the SEC? There are a lot of dominant brands, not as many on that level in the Big 12, but it seems wide open. And certainly you got to factor in other sports. Are we just talking football here?
Well, now if you're including the other sports, I think it's definitely more wide open. I think Arizona, they have some financial issues, but their basketball is tremendous. They have good baseball. Their football seems to be very good. I would throw Arizona in the mix on that, but I think Oklahoma State maybe has the best consistency if they get the right coach for basketball. They're very good at baseball. They hosted. They won the Big 12 tournament. They're very good at softball. So yeah, I still would stick with Oak State, but I agree with you. It's wide open, larger leagues, so there's more a closer margin because there's more hills.
Which shows you UCF has opportunity not only in football but the other sports to become a brand name in the Big 12. That's going to take some money, though, Elo.
You're going to need some money because you got schools like Ohio State, Trace, that reportedly Ohio State players will receive around $20 million in NIL, believed to be the largest amount for any school in college football, budget-wise. $20 million, Trace. I know that's not chump change to you, sir, but that's not chump change to UCF.
A week ago, Terry Mohadra did a Big 12 mission control update and said they had $32 million in donations, but they need $40 million to do, I don't know what, right? The tower or whatever else needs to be completed. That's all. Just a little bit more. Can I segue, though, to this? Texas Tech, Lubbock, Texas, just paid a softball player $1 million plus. You
Correct.
cover softball day
Correct.
in and day out for the In the Circle podcast.
Yes.
How? Where did this money come from in Lubbock for softball player?
It's real simple. The booster is a former softball player who's married to her husband, works in the oil company. So let's say they got money. They were tired of Texas Tech coaches going every other year, being bolted out. Najee Kennedy's the biggest star in the sport. So they pushed the money. And this is going to be the thing, Trace. I think when we get into all this settlement and all the scholarships being raised and all this money, everybody's going to support football and men's basketball. That's the easy part. What are these schools going to do? Are they going to be able to support all the other sports, or are they going to pick and choose their sport? I think Texas Tech went all in on softball based on that investment. Is UCF in that position to invest on a women's sport? Are they going to be able to balance it out? I really find that hard to believe for not just UCF, but for a lot of schools that are going to be able to do that. And I think I think of Danny White. Remember when Danny White came to UCF, his goal was to make all sports a top 25 program. I actually think that's going to be harder now because I don't buy that every school is just going to spend all this money on every sport.
Does this make Texas Tech the favorite in the Big 12 in softball with the departures of Oklahoma and Texas?
I think they're a top two. It's them and Oklahoma State in the Big 12. I think those are the two. I think it's a big move for the Big 12. They'll get more eyeballs on that. More on that on the In the Circle podcast with Phil Slavin, a guest on the show, and a Trace Trylko reference in that podcast, by the way. Around the Kingdom.
There we go. All right, time to bring back in Adam. What did we get right? What did we get wrong?
Apparently, I didn't make the In the Circle podcast, Trace, but here's what I can tell you. You guys were talking about Gus Malzahn. Last year, he had 3 losses of 2 points or less, but people forget he had 2 wins by 2 points or more or less. So Gus is kind of boom or bust there. You guys mentioned
it's all in the hat.
It is in the hat. Something interesting I recognized on the captain front last year, Ricky Barber was a captain, not a captain this year, although still on the team. That one seemed interesting to me. Trace, you were talking about UCF on the rushing defense. They were obviously last in the Big 12 in terms of rush defense. But fun fact, Elo, of the top 10 rushers in college football last year, the Big 12 had 3 of the top 10, including our own RJ Harvey. No other conference had more than 1. Defensive players who could get double-digit sacks, I submit to you Malachi Lawrence as an option. He obviously had a really good season last year. Can he carry that forward? Elo, 25 touchdown passes by KJ Jefferson would be the most in his entire collegiate career. So that definitely sounds like he's Heisman worthy, although he did get announced today as a Maxwell Award finalist. So maybe, just maybe, along with RJ Harvey, by the way.
The buzz is building.
The buzzes are, you've already lit the candle that's going to get KJ the Heisman. And if he does, you must be in New York to see him receive it.
Trace, I'm going to give you this hat. You're at practice. You could use this while you're like shooting.
I could use that. One more thing before we go, Elo. On the road again. Bookies.com analyzed the miles to be traveled by each of the Big 12 schools this coming season. Knights in 4th, 9,778 miles from Orlando to various destinations. And that 4th is with Gainesville in the mix. That's just a bus trip, up 75. Utah comes in 3rd, Arizona State 2nd, topping the list, West Virginia, which will log 11,137 miles. So even with a lighter schedule, just 5 road games, 1 in Gainesville, UCF up there, Elo, in miles to be traveled this coming football season. Look for new episodes midweek every week on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. The audio drops wherever you get your downloadable content. Thank you, Adam Eaton. Thank you, Eric Lopez. I'm Trace Trylko. Thank you, everyone, for watching this week's Around the Kingdom.